rest ye merry gentlemen, let nothing you dismay. Remember Christ our Savior was born on Christmas Day to save us all from Satan's power when we were gone astray. Oh, tidings of comfort and joy, comfort and joy. Oh, tidings of comfort and joy.
More than many Christmases ago, orphan boys in London, England, were forced to be chimney sweepers, cleaning the dirt, soot, and ashes from rich people's chimneys. Well, this theatrical story, A Charles Dickens Chimney Sweeper's Happy and Healthy Christmas, tells the story on Christmas Eve morning of two boys. One, a London street orphan, who is wishing he can get a few pennies to buy a little bit of food as a Christmas present from Mr. Charles Dickens. The other boy is an American visitor, pretending to be a London chimney sweeper so that he can be in the home of Mr. Charles Dickens and meet the writer of A Christmas Carol. One boy wishing and the other boy pretending. But perhaps both are really hoping. Is there a difference between wishing and pretending and hoping? Well, why don't you be the judge after you hear the story?
God rest ye merry gentlemen, let nothing you dismay. Remember Christ our Savior was born on Christmas Day to save us all from Satan's power when we were gone astray. Oh, tidings of comfort and joy, comfort and joy. Oh, tidings of comfort and joy.
What you doing? Putting your dirty fingers and sticking your smudgy nose on his papers is sinful. Mr. Dickens is going to be asking whose sooty fingers touching his writing papers. When the lady of the house tells him the chimney boy, he going to be sending the police to looking for you.
Maybe I am the first man to be reading his new Christmas story.
You ain't no man. Don't be pretending you being something you ain't.
When I was standing in that London theater, after cleaning out the chimneys, before the audience people were walking in and sitting down, waiting for Mr. Dickens to step out on stage and start reading the Christmas Carol.
The good Lord going to be having an odd time this Christmas, forgiving you for being sinful in the house of one of the good Lord's favourite men who walks the London streets.
And I was pretending to be finished cleaning the theater's chimney, but instead I was hiding in the costume closet, leaving the door a crack open big enough to be seeing and hearing Mr. Dickens reading from his Christmas Carol about those ghosts and Tiny Tim and Mr. Ebenezer Scrooge. I thought I was soaring up to heaven, but now, standing here, in his room, at his desk, holding in my hands his written papers, I swear I'm standing inside the pearly gates of heaven, and I ain't ever going to be leaving.
Don't be doing no swearing. You and me are cursed enough. Ain't no blessing being a chimney sweeping boy, and I don't want to be getting no curses on the morning of Christmas Eve. Ain't getting no presents, and don't want to get no new curses.
When I ain't a boy no more, when I got me whiskers coming out from my chin, I suspect I'm going to be a writer like Mr. Charles Dickens, famous around all of London, money jiggling up and down in my coat pockets, when I'm walking down the streets waving to everyone who says with big open eyes, "There he is!" just like they do him. Like they're doing Mr. Dickens right now, as I'm standing in the written room of Mr. Charles Dickens.
And you can look up and see me in the balcony of Buckingham Palace when I'm crowned King of England. Now you stop your foolish talking and help me sweeping the chimney ashes into the bucket.
Mr. Dickens says that's what his stories are all about. Dreaming to be someone you want to be, instead of being someone cursed to be someone you don't want to be.
I don't want the lady of the house to be boxing my ears because you ain't done no chimney cleaning in his house.
Some nights, when I ain't sleeping, I imagine I'm walking the streets of London with Mr. Dickens, like I was his best friend. People staring at us, and every time he sees a beggar pleading for a coin, or sees some poor mother watching her starving children cry, or sees ragged orphan children like you and me, covered with chimney dirt and ashes, he stops and shouts, "Bless your heart and soul!"
I can't be wasting my brain pretending such pictures in my brain. I would get so puzzled. How does a boy grow up to be a man like Mr. Charles Dickens? I know enough to know I got to grow up knowing my proper station. I'm an orphan boy who can't go to school, and I just got to clean out chimneys. Ain't going to grow up into a man who is rich and famous like him.
If I don't do dreaming, I just going to grow up feeling pity for myself.
When we was cleaning the kitchen chimney, did you see and smell the butter, pickles, bacon and cheese on the table? Mrs. Dickens is going to be cooking up a heavenly feast to feed Mr. Dickens on Christmas morning. I've been wondering if all of his children going to be eating cabbage soaked in vinegar for their Christmas night meal, and then sitting on the floor around their father's legs while he is reading to them from his book about poor little Tiny Tim.
Vinegar cabbage. I can close my eyes right now and be pretending in my brain that cabbage and vinegar is sitting on my tongue.
If I had a mum and she was going to be giving me a Christmas present, I'd want her to be giving me an orange, a lemon, and an onion.
My mama had the most beautiful singing voice in all of London. She ain't never done her singing on any fancy theater stage, but when she was singing to me when I was a baby, her sitting on a wooden box on a street selling her loaves of bread, and I was lying there on the street, the best tasting bread any man could ever sink his teeth into, she would be singing to keep me from crying.
My poor mum, when she was singing, she sounded like a frog who had swallowed a burning lump of coal.
My mama made rag dolls. There was a rag doll named Victoria after the Queen, and even one boy rag doll she named Mr. Jingles from the book Mr. Dickens he called The Pickwick Papers.
Too many foods together don't smell good.
Someday, when I'm a man, I'm going to be living in a house like Mr. Charles Dickens' house. Here, elegant, lots of rooms. Then one day, before winter comes, I'm going to be hearing a knock on my door. And I'm going to open the door and see a chimney-sweeping boy standing there. I'm going to be saying, "Don't you get any dirt or grime or ashes all over my written papers with your filthy covered fingers?"
I heard people talking. Said when Mr. Dickens was a little boy, he was poor. His father was in jail for being so poor. I heard them people talking about Mr. Dickens being a little boy who was working in a warehouse making black polish for shoes. I heard them. I ain't pretending. I heard people talking like that. I really did hear them.
I remember some man walking down the street and seeing my mama and me, and he bought a loaf of her bread. But when he walked away, I heard him saying to this lady friend, "That bread-selling woman stinks like a dirty onion."
We shouldn't be thinking about anything. We should be finishing cleaning out this chimney before we go to the next room to do more cleaning.
I don't know anyone got himself more talent as Mr. Dickens. He got to be the most humblest man in all of London. People who got themselves a talent, I'll bet the good Lord blessing them with humbleness.
I ain't got no talent, and I ain't got no reason to be humble. Ain't got nothing to be joyful about this Christmas, just like the last Christmas and the Christmas before. I'll bet a penny that when Mr. Dickens is walking into his family room on Christmas Eve and seeing all his party guests shouting "Happy Christmas" to him, then he's going to be feeling real humble. Then they are going to be sitting around the table eating sweet-smelling and sweet-tasting plum pudding.
Look at this paper. It's a new story Mr. Dickens has written and calling The Child Story. Once upon a time, a good many years ago, there was a traveler, and he set out upon a journey. It was a magic journey, and was to seem very long. When he began, it was very short. When he got halfway through, he traveled along a rather dark path for some little time, without meeting anything, until at last he came to a beautiful child. So he said to the child, "What do you do here?" And the child said, "I am always at play. Come and play with me."
I don't know who's going to be cursing you louder, the house lady or Mrs. Charles Dickens, when Mr. Dickens is back in this room and seeing dirt and grime and ashes all over his papers and shouting, "Who and where's the filthy chimney-sweeping boy who touched my writing papers?"
Sometimes I close my eyes, and I'm pretending I seeing pictures in my brain of me playing, and I ain't ever done no playing. Look at this Mr. Dickens has written. They had plenty of the finest toys in the world, and the most astonishing picture books all about scimitars and slippers and turbines and dwarfs and giants and genies and fairies and bluebeards and beanstalks and riches and caverns and forests.
Oh, I would be so happy to see a giant walking up the London streets.
I would like to go walking in a forest, a big forest with the biggest trees anyone could ever see.
Oh, I would be so happy to be climbing into a mysterious dark cavern instead of climbing up and down dark chimneys. Ain't nothing mysterious about chimneys. Climbing up one after another. Nothing mysterious to them at all.
Look at what he's written here. Sometimes they came to several avenues at once, and then they all stood still. And one of the children said, "Father, I am going to sea." And another said, "Father, I'm going to India." And another, "Father, I am going to seek my fortune where I can." And another, "Father, I am going to heaven." So, with many tears at parting, they went, solitary, down those avenues, each child upon his way. And the child who went to heaven rose into the golden air and vanished.
I got me the feeling of jealousy in my stomach that you can read. I don't do much pretending, but sometimes I do me some powerful wishing, and I'm wishing sometimes that I can read a book. Last night I was so tired I couldn't sleep. Strange. When I'm so tired I need to sleep, but I can't. I got up off the floor and walked outside. It was so cold. I looked down at the street and I was seeing the group of church ladies coming up to do some singing.
Carolyn.
Christmas carolyn.
My mama always wanted to join them. She wasn't good enough lady for them. But when I would hear them Christmas carolyn, I would think that none of them could sing as beautiful as my mama.
I thought my father was the best London street juggler.
What did he juggle?
He juggled oranges and apples. I thought he was a magical man, even when those oranges and apples splished and splashed every time he dropped them on the cobblestones. But he couldn't get enough money to take care of me after our mum ran off with an acrobat from a travelling circus. So he took off to Scotland to juggle on the street. Never came back. I got shoved through the doors of the children's work factories. Then I ran away. Place was a stinking place. Smelled so bad, even the ladies who worked there, they was stinking so bad. None of us children ever got to take a bath, except for once a month. So we didn't go round smelling like roses from the Queen's Palace gardens. I was so angry at my mum and my father. Then I got this work as a chimney sweeper. I don't cry myself to sleep at nights now, but...
But what?
Nothing.
Say it. But what?
Except on Christmas Eve. I let myself do some crying on Christmas Eve.
You should start pretending. Pretending is better than crying.
Pretending about what?
About when you become a man. Pretending now that you grow up and run off and join a circus like your mama and father. Maybe you got a talent, and then you can be humble too.
Maybe I could be a clown.
I heard Mr. Dickens read something from one of his stories when I was hiding in the theater closet that night and he was giving a speech. He said, "My dad never did a nicer thing for me than give me a hug."
He didn't have a nice father?
His father was in jail.
Oh, I forgot you told me that. Why?
He was always borrowing money and never was able to pay it back.
Look at this on the fireplace shelf.
Ain't that beautiful?
A Christmas card. Ain't nobody ever sent me a Christmas card.
I heard Mr. Dickens on that stage talking about Christmas cards. Maybe that was the one he was holding in his hands. Said that the first Christmas card was designed... Yeah. He said the word designed by a man they called Sir Henry Cole. He was a man who used to walk the streets of London, giving pennies to poor children. He was rich and had lots of pennies in his pockets. And he would always be shaking all the dirty children's hands and telling them Happy Christmas. Then one year, he started cutting up colorful pieces of paper and writing with his ink pen on them. Mr. Dickens said that one year, Sir Henry Cole cut 1,000 colorful pieces of paper, and his fingers got all stiff and aching, and he couldn't ever pick up an ink pen again. So he made a printing machine. He took colorful papers and drew rocking horses and candy canes, plum brandy, pudding bowls, puppers and topsy-turvy dolls on them, and then let the machine print them. Mr. Dickens said the poor London street children were so happy to get the Christmas cards.
If I was good at wishing, I'd be wishing for a Christmas card.
I know a boy who's a chimney sweeper. He's got a mother who tells fortunes with cards and looking at people's hands. She says that some chimney sweeping boys give people good luck. I wish I could be giving myself some good luck. Sometimes on Christmas Eve, I go sit up on the roof of the old building I'm sleeping in. I go through the chimney, of course, sit on the roof in the snow falling all over me, and I feel like I'm a chimney sweeper snowman.
Snowboy, you ain't no man yet.
Last Christmas Eve, it was snowing. I started singing a Christmas carol my mama used to sing. I got so sad, then angry, then sad again. I looked down from the roof and saw the London streets were filled with shoppers, children having snowball fights, musicians and singers, horses and carriages. Nobody was looking up at me. So I started throwing snowballs down at the people. Then they started looking up. I was thinking that maybe the only time people notice other people is when they're doing something bad, instead of when they're doing something good.
Mr. Dickens sure does a lot of good writing in his books.
His book, The Christmas Carol, tells people not to be greedy and selfish. Some of his stories tell people not to be angry and mean. Mr. Dickens sure is a good man.
Well, when he sees your filthy finger marks on his writing papers, he's going to be angry and mean.
Oh, look, here is something he's written. Here the sugar plums began to fly about, some bright, so lovely as the whole scene, it would be difficult to imagine. From tops of houses, streams of the richest colors and most sparkling hues were floating upon the streets.
I sure wish I knew what made some people get to be born with good luck.
This story he's written is called What Christmas Is as We Grow Old.
I was born poor, and I'm going to grow old poor.
He's written Time. With most of us, when Christmas Day, encircling all over our limited world, like a magic ring, left nothing out for us to miss or seek, bound together all our home enjoyments, affections and hopes, grounded everything and everyone around the Christmas fireplace, and made the little picture shining in our bright eyes completed. Nearer and closer to our hearts, from us, dear readers, on Christmas Day, nearer and closer to our hearts, be the Christmas spirit, which is the spirit of usefulness, perseverance, cheerful discourage of duty, kindness, forbearance. Therefore, as we grow older, let us be more thankful that the circle of our Christmas associations and of the lesson that they bring expands. Welcome all that was ever real to our hearts.
I got me so much jealousy in my stomach, I feel like I just swallowed a bucket full of chimney fire ashes.
Maybe if we stay here when Mr. Dickens comes back from his entertaining his admirers, he might be kind-hearted enough to give us a Christmas Eve present.
We ain't one of his association friends. We're just two dirty chimney sweepers trying to get a few pennies so we can eat.
But he is making speeches and writing sentences in the big London newspaper about how poor children like us shouldn't be having to work and beg for food. He's writing and talking about how poor children, like me and you, should be in a school and wearing clean clothes and having food and drink for free.
And merrymaking at Christmas. I would like to be merrymaking tonight.
Tomorrow, nobody in London is going to be wanting us to clean their chimneys, so we can lie on the floor and sleep all day, or pretend we're eating turkey and plum pudding and playing with toys and looking at picture books.
Do you think there is a real Mr. Ebenezer Scrooge? Someone real that Mr. Dickens watched and then wrote about in his book?
Of course, there are many real Mr. Scrooges, greedy men all over London. I've cleaned many of their chimneys.
What makes a boy grow up to be a greedy Mr. Ebenezer Scrooge?
I ain't smart enough to figure that out, but if I had money, I'd give it to poor children like me and you.
If I had money, I'd... Never mind.
What?
I'd buy me a rocking horse.
What are you gonna do with a wooden rocking horse?
Sit on it and ride back and forth all day, all night.
Until you become old and fat and can't sit on it?
I was doing like you told me to do. I was pretending.
Sometimes I wonder if there's a big difference between pretending and wishing.
I don't know. I'm not good at doing either.
To be standing right here in this very room and having Mr. Charles Dickens walk in and say to me, "Chimney sweeping boy, why don't you sit down and I'll have my wife, Mrs. Charles Dickens, bring you some turkey and vinegar cabbage and hot potatoes with lots of butter. And I'll sit down next to you and start reading to you the first page of the Christmas Carol."
I wonder how many pages long is that story.
Don't matter to me, because I wouldn't move or sleep until he finished reading. Unless I died first and went straight to heaven, like that boy in his other Christmas story he's written. Rose into the golden air and vanished.
If Mr. Charles Dickens came into this room and I was standing here, I'd be so scared. I'd be tinkling down my pants and making the ashes from the fireplace all wet.
God bless us, everyone. That's what Tiny Tim says at the end of the story. God bless us, everyone.
What do I got to do to make God bless me?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe we just got to do a lot of wishing.
Maybe, if we want the good Lord to give us a bucket full of love instead of a bucket filled with pity.
I got enough pity to give to myself. I don't need the good Lord's pity on me.
I got a wish.
What?
Me and you should quickly finish cleaning this room's chimney. Then we can climb up to the top and climb out onto the roof. Mr. Charles Dickens won't know we're up there. We can look for him walking down the London street to his home here, and we can shout, "Hello, Mr. Charles Dickens." He might look up and wave to us.
Are you wishing or pretending?
I don't know. Maybe I'm just open.
Hoping?
Maybe open and wishing and pretending all go together.
Which do you think is more important?
I wonder what Mr. Dickens would say if we could ask him.
I heard him saying in his speech something from a story he wrote. He said it so many times that I was hoping I was remembering it. Then, this morning, while I was knocking on the door to this very house he's living in, I was wishing I could hear him saying it again. And I don't know if the good Lord was sending me a miracle. I swear, just a little while ago, while you was talking, I saw the paper here on his desk. It's right here! So, he played with that child the whole day long. and they were very happy. The sky was blue, the sun was so bright, the water was sparkling, the leaves were so green, the flowers were so lovely, and they heard such singing and birds and saw so many butterflies that everything was beautiful. This was in fine weather. When it rained, they loved to watch the falling drops and to smell the fresh scents when it blew. It was delightful to listen to the wind, whistling and howling, bending the trees, rumbling in the chimneys, shaking the house, and making the sea roar in fury. But when it snowed, that was the best of all. For they liked nothing so well as to look up at the white flakes falling fast and thick, like down from the breasts of millions of white birds, and to see how smooth and deep the drift was, and to listen to the hush upon the paths and roads.
Oh, the jealousy is rumbling in my stomach and in my eyes. Someday, maybe I will learn to be reading.
Maybe this is the best Christmas present I could ever receive.
No! Don't be sticking any of Mr. Dickens' rotten papers in your pockets.
I ain't no thief.
Then what Christmas present you speaking of?
Being in the house of Mr. Charles Dickens, cleaning his kitchen chimney and his writing room chimney, Christmas Eve morning, and here I stand. Maybe if I clean the chimneys real good, the lady of the house will bring me back.
Well, maybe you should be helping me, 'cause I've been doing all the cleaning while you've been sticking your dirty fingers and sooty nose on papers lying on that desk.
It is a happy Christmas for me. A healthy Christmas, too. It is.
What's so healthy about it?
My body's feeling happy. That's being healthy.
Well, I swear to the good Lord, my stomach would be feeling healthy if I had some of that plum pudding and pickles I saw with my own eyes in the kitchen.
Shh! Hush up. I hear someone out in the hall.
Someone is singing.
Maybe it's Mrs. Charles Dickens.
Oh, if that's the truth, this would be a fine, fine, fine Christmas present to tell everyone on Christmas Eve morning in the house of the famous man who wrote the Christmas Carol, my ears heard the singing of Mrs. Charles Dickens.
I got an idea.
A pretending idea, or a wishing idea, or an open idea?
All of them. Let's clean out this chimney the best we've ever done with any chimney in all of London. Then I'll write a note and draw a picture on it. I know how to write a little and how to draw a little. I'll draw a picture of 2 chimney-sweeping boys looking like me and you. Also some writing. Dear Mr. Charles Dickens, dear Mrs. Charles Dickens, we hope you have a very, 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 very happy Christmas. We cleaned your chimneys really good. If you want us to come back, just ask the lady of the house in the kitchen. She knows how to find us. We wish her a happy Christmas too.
That's a lot of writing.
Dear boys, the lady of the house in the kitchen told me you did fine work cleaning the chimney. I came to Mr. Dickens' room, and I brought you a basket of oranges, apples, onions, pickles, bread, and 2 jars of plum pudding. Perhaps you will return next week and clean out the chimneys in the bedrooms of our children, so they can be warm during the winter snows. What do you say, boys? I am quite sure that my husband will be very pleased.
I think I ain't being cursed no more. I think I just got a good Christmas blessing.
God bless us all and everyone.
And unto certain shepherds brought tidings of the same, how that in Bethlehem was born the Son of God by name. Oh, tidings of comfort and joy, comfort and joy. Oh, tidings of comfort and joy.
This theatrical podcast was written and produced by Joseph Galata, editing and graphics by Amjad Hillis, performed by Stuart Davis and Cooper Mills, with singing by Rhonda LaFontaine and a cameo appearance by Catherine Mills as Mrs. Charles Dickens. We thank the Sierra Association of Foster Families, Kid-Centric LLC, and Renown Hospital. Happy Christmas to you all.